Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. So want to go ahead, do a little bit of a Monday kind of follow up on a topic that we have discussed quite a bit here on the Aaron Torres Pod and Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. And that, of course, is the state of the college football transfer portal. So transfer portal opened a week ago. By the way, if you love portal news, or maybe even if you hate portal news, make sure you're following our portal specific Twitter page, our portal specific Instagram page, CFB Transfers. CFB Transfers for your late-breaking news on players entering, players committing, visits, transfers, all that good stuff. CFB Transfers on Twitter and Instagram. With that said, like I said, we've been doing a lot of portal stuff, rankings. On Sunday, we did a reaction to some of the news of the weekend. Auburn, LSU, Ole Miss among the schools that had a lot of success over the course of the weekend. Now, though, we do have to talk about one team that it has not been a great portal season so far, the Alabama Crimson Tide. Alabama, of course, first team left out of the college football playoff. They're going to that bowl game down against Michigan in Florida. But the story to me over the last couple weeks at Alabama is they can't stop losing big names to the transfer portal. Overall, we now have 15 players from Alabama's 2024 roster in the portal. The biggest name came on Monday afternoon when Jalen Mbakwe, former five-star cornerback, widely believed to be one of the top 2 or 3 corners in the class of 2024, played as a freshman. He ends up hitting the portal. We'll get to his decision in a minute, but 15 players now from Alabama in the portal. And the simple question is this: just how concerned should Bama fans be with what is that? It's not quite a quarter of their roster, but what is it, about 35% that have now decided to transfer? So before we get into it, listen, it's worth noting, we know that this time of year, there is major roster churn at every program in college football. I think Alabama might be the most notable so far, but there are going to be other schools and other places that everybody's going to lose players. But some of these teams, some of these marquee programs, really you just don't hear a lot about because, frankly, a lot of them are in the playoff, right? I think a lot of these schools have convinced players, hey, you can enter the portal after the season ends. You're going to have time. You're going to get to the spot that you want. Kenny Dillingham, the Arizona State coach, has been vocal about, hey, you know, we're going to help you, but help us stay with the team. We'll get you to where you need to go. And I think at all these schools, Texas, Ohio State, Georgia, for all these places that haven't had roster churn yet, it's going to come. And I think even a place like Georgia has had 5, 6, 7 guys enter the portal as well. Still, it does feel different at Alabama, though, because of the number of players and, frankly, the big names that have entered the portal. I am just going to go through some of them right now. Some of them actually have already committed, but let's take a deep dive into some of these players that have decided to enter the portal. Jalen Mbakwe, I just mentioned him. He was a top 15 prospect in the class of 2024. In other words, of all the high school players in America, he was ranked among the top 15 players overall, the number 2 cornerback in America. He's from Alabama. What's interesting, and I think very frustrating if you're an Alabama fan, is that we started to get reports on Sunday night that he could be hitting the portal for a variety of reasons, including, quote, a 7-figure offer from one school if he did in fact enter the portal. So there's another conversation to have about the state of college football, of tampering. I don't like it, but everybody does it. I don't know how you can realistically stop it. Schools aren't directly reaching out to individual players, but they all have agents. They all have people that represent them. And so I don't really know how you can stop it. But this was one that I think Alabama knew was coming. I think their fans knew was coming. Doesn't make it any less frustrating because this was a kid that, as a true freshman, played significant snaps. He was on special teams. He made a lot of big plays in the kick and return, the kick and punt return game. And then, oh, by the way, during the season, also had 15 tackles, 1 interception, was phenomenal, by the way, in that South Carolina game with 5 tackles in that game. So it's not like he wasn't playing. It's not like he wasn't playing big minutes, but it's disappointing to know that he's leaving. He is just the latest, though. Beyond him, Justice Haynes. That one was a little bit surprising to me. Alabama fans, you could get in the comments and tell me if I'm crazy or not. But third leading rusher, that number is deceptive because Jalen Milroe was such a star with the ball in his hands in the run game. But Justice Haynes, 79 carries, 448 yards, tied for second with 7 rushing touchdowns, 5.5 yards per carry, closer to 6, honestly. He entered the portal late last week, and he's not the only one. Devontae Smith got meaningful snaps in the defensive backfield. What's interesting about him, he actually has already committed to Notre Dame on Monday. I think he is going to be an impact player at Notre Dame, which is going to lose some key pieces going to lose some key pieces after this playoff run to the NFL. And then, oh, by the way, the wide receiver room has largely been just kind of vanquished outside of Ryan Williams. You had, obviously, earlier this month, Kendrick Loss, 10 receptions, 105 yards, 1 touchdown, hit the portal. You also had Caleb Odom. That's the big name. He's already visited Colorado. He's set, I just saw, to visit North Carolina with their new head coaching staff, Ole Miss in Miami. And so he's in the portal. Also, by the way, on top of Kendrick Law, you've also had Emmanuel Henderson, a former high-profile player who entered the portal, and Kobe Prentice, 11 catches, 1 touchdown as well. So you lost Justice Haynes. You lost Devontae Smith. You lost several wide receivers. And I think the question becomes, how about worried should Bama fans be? Now, in the big picture, I don't know how many guys you actually lost that were going to play meaningful snaps next year. So I think the good news is that you didn't lose a ton of guys that you were expecting to have back next year. Again, you're just going to lose guys in the process of roster churn as it is. And then 2, you have a great recruiting class coming in. And I think that is the saving grace. The number 2, number 3 class it ended up being in 2025, Kalen DeBoer and that staff. We talked about them all offseason. Courtney Morgan, all those guys did an incredible job putting together this 2025 recruiting class. So you're able to plug holes. Not a lot of these guys are a surprise, but I'll still say it does impact depth. It does impact your ability to withstand things over the course of a season. And I think this is just going to be an interesting conversation going forward in all of college football, independent of Alabama. I just don't know that in 2025, with the portal the way that it is, with NIL the way that it is, that you can build a super team in college football anymore. And by the way, this isn't just a Bama thing. Look at Ohio State. Okay, Ohio State, listen, I'm Mr. Crush Ryan Day any chance that I get, but they have a star starting left tackle go down in the Oregon game. And 3, 4, 5 years ago, okay, next man up, 5-star come in. This year, they just don't have it. The backup gets hurt. They have to move guards to tackle. Like, that is the world that we live in. Georgia, we see them. Listen, Georgia, SEC champ, deserving, beat Texas twice, all that good stuff. You can just see watching them. This is not the same Georgia team. They don't have the same depth. They had a couple guys, obviously, with the situation at Georgia off the field that got thrown off the team in the offseason. The wide receiver group isn't as deep, the defensive line, and that's not due to players getting thrown off, but it's just in general. The defensive line isn't as deep. The O-line isn't as dominant. You look at Texas, they got major issues. Listen, Texas's O-line is great. Their defense is great, but, they're not throwing the ball very well. So the point I'm trying to make is that everybody has holes, everybody has issues, everybody has problems, and I just don't think it's changing. And I think this situation in Alabama is kind of a perfect metaphor for it, right? Is that in previous years, pre-portal, pre-NIL, these are guys that would stay 2, 3, 4 years, and they might not play as a freshman, or they would play as a freshman, but they might not get significant snaps until they're sophomores. They might not get significant snaps until they're juniors. Part of the Jalen Mbakwe decision was, hey, he might not be a starter next year. If Damani Jackson comes back, all of a sudden him, Zabian Brown, those are probably your 2 starting corners. So what does it mean for Jalen Mbakwe? And then on top of that, you have reports that somebody's willing to pay him 7 figures to go to another school. So you hate to see it if you're a Bama fan. It is the new reality. And I just don't know what you can do, not only if you're Bama, but if you're Georgia, if you're Ohio State, if you're whoever, because those guys that would be the backup as a sophomore that would step in if there's an injury, those guys just aren't staying, and now you don't have the depth. And so you don't wish anything upon anyone, but what does it mean if there is an injury in the secondary? What if it means if there is an injury? That guy that would have been there 2-3 years ago is no longer there. He's now at a different school. He's now starting at fill in the blank. And I'm not going to speculate on who offered Jalen Mbakwe 7 figures. I have a hunch, a strong hunch, as a matter of fact, but we're going to stay out of that for right now. But I just bring it up because that kid wanted to start. He wanted to play immediately. He's got a financial offer that it's hard to turn down. And I think we're seeing it in all of college football. So Alabama right now is getting hit the hardest. Here's the crazy part. Guess what? In a week from now, it'll be somebody else. Maybe it'll be Georgia. Maybe it'll be Texas. Maybe it'll be Penn State. Maybe it'll be Ohio State. I don't know. But the bottom line remains, I just think this is the new world of college football. And I think, unfortunately, if you're a Bama fan, it's just your turn right now. If you enjoyed this video, do me a quick favor. Make sure to subscribe to the Aaron Torres Pod and Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. New clips, new videos going up every single day. Also, make sure you're following our CFB transfers page on Twitter and Instagram. All of your late-breaking portal news, CFB transfers on Twitter and Instagram. Appreciate everybody's support. Full episode of the Aaron Torres Pod coming Tuesday afternoon.